Welcome to the Horrifying Obsession channel, a YouTube channel that chronicles true stories from the beautiful country of Vietnam. In the year 2000, Hanoi was in the midst of a rapid development boom, with new skyscrapers rising everywhere, bustling streets filled with traffic, and ancient neighborhoods that retained their charm amidst the modern city. Life here seemed to become more and more hectic, yet it was also full of hope and opportunities for those who knew how to seize them. Amidst this backdrop, a murder shocked the entire city. The body of Do Tuan, a young and successful businessman, was discovered in his private apartment. The apartment was located on the 7th floor of a luxury condominium in the old quarter of Hanoi, where every afternoon, golden sunlight streamed through the windows, creating a space that was both warm and peaceful. But now, this place had become the scene of a mysterious crime. When the police arrived at the scene, they noticed that there were no signs of forced entry or theft. Everything in the apartment was in order, except for Do Tuan's lifeless body lying on the cold floor, with wounds on his body that sent chills down anyone's spine. Do Tuan's death not only caused a stir due to its mysterious nature, but also because he was a well-known figure in the business and social circles. A young man with a rising career, dying under such suspicious circumstances, raised countless questions about the true cause behind the crime. To understand this case better, we need to go back to the 1990s, when Do Tuan and Van Viet, two promising young men, met at Hanoi University of Industry. It was a time full of promise, as Vietnam was undergoing reforms and opening up to the world. Major economic and social changes created countless new opportunities for the younger generation, and Do Tuan and Van Viet were among those striving to seize those opportunities. Van Viet was born into an intellectual family in Hung Yen. His father was a high school teacher, and his mother was a doctor. From a young age, Van Viet was raised in a disciplined and strict environment. He was taught that education was the only path to success, and he was never allowed to neglect his studies. As a result, Van Viet always put in his best effort in his studies and soon became one of the top students at the university. Do Tuan, on the other hand, came from a farming family in Hai Duong. He grew up surrounded by vast rice fields and the fresh air of the countryside. Tuan didn't have the same educational opportunities as Van Viet, but he made up for it with a strong will and determination to change his life. He knew that only through education could he escape the poverty of his rural life, and that's why he tried his best to get into Hanoi University of Industry. The meeting between Van Viet and Do Tuan at the university was one of the most memorable moments of their lives. They quickly became close friends due to their shared thinking and life goals. Van Viet, with his calm and mature demeanor, became a mentor to Do Tuan in many academic and life matters. Meanwhile, Do Tuan, with his enthusiasm and energy, inspired Van Viet, helping him become more open and confident. Everything seemed to go smoothly until Cam Tu appeared. She was one of the most outstanding students at the university, not only because of her beauty, but also because of her talent and intelligence. Cam Tu quickly attracted the attention of both Van Viet and Do Tuan, and from that point on, their friendship began to grow more complicated. The subtle competition between the two to win Cam Tu's affection gradually strained their close relationship. Finally, after a long internal struggle, Do Tuan decided to step back and give Van Viet a chance. He understood that their friendship was more valuable than any romance, and giving up Cam Tu to Van Viet was the best thing he could do to protect their friendship. However, deep down, Do Tuan couldn't help but feel a sense of regret and sorrow because his feelings for Cam Tu were profound. After graduation, all three found stable jobs in Hanoi. Van Viet and Cam Tu became a happy couple, while Do Tuan also tried to build his own life. He married Lo Mai, a gentle and understanding girl who helped him overcome the difficulties of life. Their lives seemed peaceful and stable, but that tranquility was only on the surface. As time passed, the marriage of Van Viet and Cam Tu began to encounter problems. Cam Tu, driven by her career ambitions, devoted most of her time to work, neglecting her family. Van Viet, who always valued family, felt lonely and emotionally deprived. Meanwhile, Do Tuan, although married to Liu Mai, could not forget Cam Tu. The suppressed emotions of the past began to shake the peace they had tried to maintain. During a meeting at their usual bar, Do Tuan, in a drunken state, came up with a bold idea, swapping wives for a year to see if their current partners were truly the best choices. This idea sounded crazy, but at that moment, it became something intriguing to Van Viet. The two of them discussed and deliberated, and eventually, under Do Tuan's persuasion, Van Viet agreed to join the game. Surprisingly, when the proposal was presented, both Cam Tu and Liu Mai did not object. They agreed on the condition that it was merely an experiment and that everything would return to normal if they found that the new arrangement did not bring true happiness. And so, the wife swapping began, carrying with it many expectations and dangers that none of them could foresee. The first days of the wife swapping experiment passed with mixed emotions. Van Viet, who had long felt emotionally deprived, began to find in Lo Mai a sense of empathy he had never experienced with Cam Tu. Lo Mai, with her gentleness and sensitivity, filled the void in Van Viet's heart, making him feel peaceful and happy. On the other hand, although Do Tuan had Cam Tu, he began to feel that her feelings for him were no longer the same. Cam Tu remained a strong and independent woman, and she didn't seem to truly need Do Tuan in her life. Small daily conflicts gradually became larger cracks. Do Tuan felt abandoned and betrayed when he realized that Lo Mai and Van Viet seemed to have genuinely found new love with each other. Jealousy, loneliness, and despair began to consume Do Tuan, making him increasingly irritable and discontented. Everything reached a climax when Do Tuan was found dead in his apartment on a cold winter evening. When the police arrived at the scene, they realized that this case was far from simple. There were no signs of forced entry, no murder weapon was found, and Do Tuan's body lay there, with wounds indicating that he had struggled before his death. The investigation was quickly launched, but faced difficulties from the start. All the evidence pointed to the possibility of a random murder, but the complex relationships between the characters led the investigators to consider many different hypotheses. Van Viet became the main suspect when the police discovered that he was the last person to meet Do Tuan before his death. Van Viet's statements about his meeting with Do Tuan were riddled with inconsistencies, and when asked about his current relationship with Liu Mai, Van Viet appeared confused and unable to provide a clear answer. This made the police believe that something was being hidden. Cam Tu and Liu Mai were also not beyond suspicion. Cam Tu, with her strong and decisive personality, asserted that she knew nothing about Do Tuan's death and had no reason to harm him. However, when the police questioned her about her relationship with Do Tuan after the wife swapping began, Cam Tu became secretive and refused to answer, further arousing the police's suspicion. Liu Mai, Do Tuan's gentle wife, seemed deeply distressed and confused by her husband's death. She cried and insisted that she knew nothing about what had happened, but when asked about their marriage, Liu Mai admitted that they had been having many conflicts recently and that Do Tuan had become more distant. The police began to scrutinize every small detail of all four people's lives, from phone messages and mysterious calls to unusual actions they might have taken recently. Secret relationships, underlying conflicts, all gradually came to light, creating a complex picture of their lives. During the investigation, the police discovered some important clues in Do Tuan's personal diary, hidden in a secret drawer. The pages of the diary were filled with chaotic lines, reflecting Do Tuan's troubled thoughts about life, friendship, and especially his relationship with Cam Tu after the wife swapping began. These diary entries revealed a completely different Do Tuan from the strong exterior he usually displayed. He had become weak, vulnerable, and haunted by the betrayal he felt from those he had once trusted the most. In the final entries, Do Tuan wrote about his despair upon realizing that his life had reached an impasse. He no longer felt happy in his marriage to Lo Mai, and his relationship with Cam Tu also did not bring him the joy he had once hoped for. Do Tuan began to feel like a loser in the game he had created, which pushed him into a state of psychological instability. The police also found out that recently, Do Tuan had been trying to secretly meet and talk to Liu Mai. One of their last meetings was at a small coffee shop, where Do Tuan told Liu Mai that he had something very important to tell her but couldn't say it at that time. Liu Mai later denied knowing anything about this when questioned by the police, but the anxiety in her eyes made the police unable to rule her out as a suspect. Meanwhile, the investigation also shed more light on the conflicts between Van Viet and Do Tuan. A witness reported seeing the two arguing near Do Tuan's house on the night he died, and that the argument was very heated. The witness also mentioned that Van Viet appeared very angry and left after Do Tuan said something offensive. This made the police even more convinced that Van Viet had a motive to kill Do Tuan. Do Tuan's diary was a crucial piece of evidence, but it wasn't enough to conclude the case. The police continued their investigation and found a recording on Do Tuan's personal computer, where he had recorded his final thoughts before his death. In this recording, Do Tuan talked about feeling betrayed, the pain of realizing that no one truly cared about him, and his intention to end everything by committing suicide. What was even more shocking was that Do Tuan had deliberately created a situation where Van Viet would become a murderer. He knew that Van Viet, in a fit of anger and despair, might lose control and cause a fatal accident. Do Tuan had meticulously planned to ensure that his death would not be seen as a suicide, but as a murder, forcing Van Viet to pay for what he had done. The diary and the recording clarified the entire case, but it also put Van Viet in an inescapable situation. Although he had no intention of killing Do Tuan, his actions led to his friend's death, and the law couldn't overlook that. Van Viet was charged with involuntary manslaughter and faced a long prison sentence. The case concluded with a prison sentence for Van Viet. Throughout the trial, Van Viet expressed deep remorse and sorrow, but nothing could change the fact that he had contributed to the death of his best friend. Although Cam Tu and Liu Mai were not convicted, they couldn't escape the psychological trauma caused by the incident. Their lives were completely turned upside down after the case, and they had to endure years of struggle to heal their emotional wounds. Cam Tu, who had once been strong and decisive, now became weak and quiet. She no longer retained her confidence and felt lost in her own life. The memories of Do Tuan and the murder haunted her, causing her to lose faith in love and marriage. The memories of Do Tuan and the murder haunted her, causing her to lose faith in love and marriage, and she had to confront nightly nightmares where Do Tuan's image continually haunted her mind. Liu Mai, Do Tuan's gentle wife, didn't fare any better. She felt guilty for not recognizing her husband's distress earlier, which led to his death. Liu Mai tried to return to a normal life, but the mental trauma she endured was too great. She frequently suffered from depression and had to seek help from a psychologist. The lives of those left behind after the incident were changed forever. They had to learn how to live with the painful memories and seek out a new meaning in life after everything had fallen apart. For them, happiness now seemed like a distant and elusive concept. Do Tuan's murder was not just a story of betrayal and death. It was also a profound lesson on the dangers of playing with emotions and marriage. The consequences brought about by the wife-swapping arrangement not only destroyed the lives of the 4 individuals involved, but also left unhealable scars on those around them. Happiness cannot be achieved through dangerous games, but must come from understanding, respect, and valuing the true essence of life. The investigation into Do Tuan's death may have concluded, but the repercussions it caused still linger, serving as a warning about the mistakes people can make when they get caught up in the whirlwinds of emotions and ambitions. The core values of marriage and friendship, if taken lightly, can lead to tragedies that cannot be undone. What do you think about the wife-swapping experience of these 2 friends? Please leave a comment so we can discuss it together. Thank you for following the story. Don't forget to give me a like and a subscribe. See you in the next videos on the Horrifying Obsession YouTube channel.